All right, well, thank you everyone for joining us here today. My name is Glenn Engelberg, and I am the Assistant Director of Recruitment for the MS in Global Energy Management, or AKA GEM program, as you'll hear often today in the broadcast. And we are with the Business School at the University of Colorado, Denver. And thank you again for joining us here today. And among other things, you will go ahead and discover some of the unique features of the GEM program, along with a detailed overview of the student experience. And to help us out with that, we have GEM alumni Michael Hartnack, who I'll introduce here in a couple minutes. And that will give everyone a much broader overview of the program and a much better emphasis of all the details, so you can see if it's the right fit for your graduate degree. And now I'd like to go over a quick agenda of what you can expect here over the webinar. We're first going to go ahead and have some details on the GEM experience, which will include what the classroom is like, the cohort model, the in-person and online component. Then we'll discuss a little more about some other unique features of the program compared to other master's degree, and we'll get into depth about a lot of different job examples from all different energy fields. That'll help give you a better idea as far as what some of our alumni and students have done with the program. And then we'll go over a few other details on the application process as well. As I mentioned in the email too, we are going to be giving away books to your first quarter of the GEM class to one of our live attendees today, and we'll have a few details on that in the very end of our broadcast. So definitely stay tuned for that, and that's worth up to about $300 to $400 of books I'll provide for your first quarter here for that. And a couple other quick reminders too to everyone here. Number one, well, in addition to that giveaway we're going to have at the end here, you will also see a chat box. If you have any questions, please go ahead and feel free to write them in there, and we'll go ahead and address them either throughout the webinar or if we have time in the Q&A session at the very end. In addition to that, we do have a couple quick polls that I think will help guide the broadcast today. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce the first one right here. Just please click on two of those topics that you're most interested in learning about. It'll take you like 10 seconds or so, and that'll help us make sure that we go over really the most important items in the webcast here today. All right, and without further ado here, we're going to go ahead and introduce our special guest, GEM alumnus Michael Hartnack. He graduated the program here about 3 years ago and currently works as a senior consultant and grid analyst at Navigant Consulting. So I'm going to go ahead and have Michael say a few words here to introduce himself, and then we're going to go ahead and begin the rest of the webinar. And to let everyone know, we'll have some specific questions that Michael will answer throughout it as we describe in detail all the different components of the degree.
Thanks. Can you hear me okay, Glenn?
Yep, certainly can.
Great, thanks for the intro. So as he said, I'm Michael Hartnack. I am a 2016 graduate, cohort number 13 from the GEM program. When I began the GEM program, I was working in finance and accounting, not in the energy industry. I did the GEM program, and about halfway through, I moved out here to Colorado because I love Denver so much, and got a job with the help of one of the professors actually at Xcel Energy, which is the utility out here in Denver. If you live here, you likely pay them every month. And so I worked there for about 1.5 years. And once I graduated, really started to turn things up on my end as far as looking for the next step in my career. So I ended up landing here at Navigant Consulting in Boulder. And I focus on smart grid, transmission and distribution space, kind of the emergence of new technologies that utilities are focusing on improving their grid performance and grid technologies that are coming from both the hardware and the software side. So that kind of encapsulates the entire utility industry, because the power has to get from the generation to your house or to where it's going. So I do a lot of work, from start to end on the utility side. That's just a little bit of background on me. Any of you guys have any questions about my career or Navigant or Xcel Energy, certainly willing to take those questions, or we can talk about it offline.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you so much for that, Michael. And we'll look forward to discussing many more details about the program with you here today. And now, on that note, we'd like to go ahead and transition to learning a little more specifically about the GEM degree. So we'll go into a couple details here. First, with more of a broad overview of the program. So as you can see here, one of the very unique things about the GEM degree is that it focuses on all energy fields, from renewables to utilities, oil and gas, even some nuclear, I mean, the entire energy industry. And it is 100% energy focused. So you're not just learning about the business and leadership side, but how does that work in the context of the energy field to help you grow as an energy leader. And the program as well is designed for working professionals. Just about all students are working in the program, working as they do the program here part-time. And in addition to the master's degree, which you can complete in 18 months, we do offer 2 graduate certificates, which are 3 out of the 12 courses. In addition, we have been around for a little over 10 years, and we're really excited to begin our 22nd cohort here in January. I'll discuss some of the application details here a little later in the webcast, and we'll have a quick poll question on that about halfway through as well. But we are still working with students for the upcoming cohort, so I'll be happy to help anyone who's interested in that. But a couple other quick details. Over 80% of our cohorts are energy professionals, or in terms of the demographics. So one of the great things is whether you are an energy professional or transitioning into it, the majority of people that you're learning with are in the field and give a great perspective that way. Also, we have over 400 alumni and students spread across the entire globe, which is really exciting. So, of course, a strong contingent here in Colorado, but also really strong contingents on the West Coast, Texas, East Coast, and several countries there that you can see as well across all different continents. And as I mentioned before, the program here is tailored towards working professionals. So one of the things I really wanted to emphasize with that is that we designed the program from the bottom up, assuming that you're going to be working full-time and have a full-time schedule. So you would do the program here on a part-time basis, where you would have our cohort weekends, which I'll go ahead and discuss here in a moment. But in addition to that, we have different social events, executive in residence program, a hybrid online format that we'll talk a little more about, and career advancement opportunities that we'll discuss too. But essentially everything is energy focused, with learning from a cohort of energy professionals taught by energy leaders that will be your faculty. And that's one of the things that really separates this, I'd say, from an MBA or other MS programs, is the expertise of the people that are in the program and the energy focus of it in all different arenas. And actually on that note too, to go ahead and discuss a little more about the time and work-life balance, which I know was one of the poll questions that got the most feedback from. I know Michael was working full-time while doing the program, so we'll start off with the first question there, Michael. Can you go ahead and discuss how you were able to complete the GEM program while working full-time, and discuss a little bit about the online flexibility as well?
Sure, thanks. So yeah, one of the to me, the primary draws of this particular program was the flexibility afforded by it. Staring down the barrel of having to take a couple of years off work to do a full-time graduate program that only takes 18 months is a pretty daunting I thought it wasn't something I wanted to do, and the GEM program gave me the ability to continue to work full-time while getting the opportunity to travel to Denver, but also take the time as was best fit into my schedule. So one of the things that I did was actually the lectures that we do, that the school does. They provide lectures online in a 10-week or a 9-week course format. The professors release the lectures. One of the things that I did, I actually downloaded the lectures in podcast format, and I had about a 45-minute to an hour commute each way on the train when I used to live in Boston. So I would listen or watch downloaded lectures on my phone on the subway. And that, while some of the more complicated lectures required some note-taking opportunities, that really allowed me to balance my own schedule, to take advantage of some of my downtime and get some of that work done during the week. That didn't necessarily take away from my after work evening experience. I think that taking the chance to spend a little bit of time during the week really helps, as far as not having to spend your whole weekend there. Depending on how you personally like to work, you can put it all off onto the weekend and then have a miserable weekend, or assuming that the workload is towards the end of the quarter, the workload gets a little bit heavier. But I think that the best way to do it, as far as balancing work life is to spend a little bit of time on it every day. And I never, I always say to my wife, I never feel like my life was impacted significantly in a negative way by the amount of work that I had to do for GEM. The professors, they understand that the majority of people in this program work full time, and they adjust the workload accordingly. And what else is nice is that a lot of the work that we do is group based. So there may be opportunities where you may not be able to work on a project in a given week, and you may kind of lean on one of your teammates to carry the load that particular week. And that's some additional flexibility when it comes to managing the workload over the course of the term.
All right, great. Yeah, thank you, Michael. And we're going to go ahead and actually discuss that a little more in depth too when we talk about the curriculum and courses and what that looks like. But yeah, I think overall that's a good perspective, that you make it fit around your schedule. And that's one of the nice things, at least about the online component, is that you can go ahead and be flexible in that regard to ensure that is the case. And in addition to that too as well, I think as Michael mentioned, that we have the cohort weekend here that really goes ahead and kicks everything off. So what the hybrid online format, just to clarify how that's structured, is that you have 6 quarters here, and those quarters are in January, April, July, and October. Each quarter is going to be a Friday through Monday to help minimize time off work. And to kick off each one of those quarters, those first 4 days will be here in Denver, Colorado. You'll do a little over half of your actual lecture hours, and also get to meet your cohort, do some group projects in person, and really set a foundation for not just networking and collaborating with your classmates, but also your instructor gets much better feel for the class. A lot of people have different backgrounds, so it helps a lot with that component too. And we also do an executive in residence, which we'll talk about a little later, some social events, some site tours from the Panasonic factory right by the airport here to NREL, oil rigs, a little bit of everything. So it's definitely a full 4 days, but one that I know is really helpful for a lot of students here. So actually on that note too, to kind of talk a little more about the cohort model, Michael, what would you say was the advantage of the GEM cohort model for you specifically, and the support you received from your classmates?
All right, great. So I think the cohort model really added another dimension to the program that I think would have been absent without the relationship that you develop with your peers. I always say that, you learn a lot from the professors in this program, but you also learn a ton from the people that you are with. And you're not just with a different person in every class. You're in class over the course of the cohort weekend, building relationships with the same folks over the course of a year and a half. And you really be able to grow kind of in your energy experience and your energy knowledge together, and that forms really strong bonds when you spend that much time together, and you're all in class and you're all here to learn about energy. So there's that pre-established bonding that you've got with the different members of your cohort. In other schools where maybe you just show up to a different course with different people, you're really going through the program as an individual student. And one of the things about the cohort model is that you really feel like you're going through the program, you're approaching your different tasks and your problems and finding solutions as a group and as a team. And that cohort model also facilitates some of the group-based projects that we do over the course of the program. It really helps facilitate the strong relationships that you build with potential teammates as you try to tackle some of the problems that you'll approach as part of the assignments over the course of the program.
Wonderful. And actually too, we had a question here that relates to that as well, Michael, that maybe you can touch on a little bit. One of the participants would like to know if you can talk a little more about not just the relationship with your classmates, I think that you talked about, but maybe even during the program and still today, if you've kept in touch with anyone.
Oh yeah, for sure. Some of my good friends here in Denver were from the GEM program. I think one of the interesting things is once you're graduated, because you all are in the energy industry, you have a professional network with which to keep in touch with, as well as whatever personal or social life you might want to engage in. If I go to an industry happy hour in Denver, an energy industry happy hour, I can try to connect with some of my GEM cohort teammates, because we're all there to learn about energy, and we're all a lot of us are in the same space, whether it's oil and gas or the utility side. And I keep in touch with some folks from my cohort almost every day, actually, to be honest, a couple of different people. And I think that that's, one of the strong points of the program is if you're, inclined to want to form relationships, close relationships with people in the program, the cohort model really gives the opportunity to do that.
Wonderful. Yeah, no, I think that's definitely true. And I can speak from experience as well, because it's part of my role. I go to many industry events too. And I'd say at least 4/5 of the time, I'm running into at least a couple different GEM alumni or students there who I know I'm still talking about, the people they stay in touch with. So that's great to hear. Thank you, Michael. And in addition to those 4 days in person to kick off the program here, as I mentioned before, the next 9 weeks are online. This is what allows our students to continue working full-time while doing the program with it as well. But it's not your average online class. And just to clarify too, I'm not sure if everyone here has taken an online class before. I've taken several. I've had some that are really good. I've had some that are frankly awful, and a little bit in between. What I can truly say about the way ours is set up is that it's very unique, where you have those first 4 days on that cohort model that are set up to build those relationships. Have your instructors get a really good feeling for what everyone's strengths and weaknesses are. Start forming some groups based on your background and experience, and get a much better feel for what the next 9 weeks will look like. In addition to that too, you'll actually get an agenda of what the biggest assignments are, know how to manage your time better, so it really sets you up for success. And also makes the online component much more collaborative. Everyone knows each other, it's more discussion friendly, and it's just a little better that way too. In addition, our instructors do have office hours as well. So one of the things that's nice about it is that all your assignments are deadline driven, which I believe we discussed, so there's no specific times you have to log in. And in addition to that, for office hours, I know as an example, Dr. Hussein, who teaches our technical aspects of energy science class, will sometimes host like 2 or 3 office hours during that 9-week period that are recorded sessions, and go ahead and post those into the main group forum that everyone can view as well. Because let's face it, if one person has a question on a topic, most people probably do. So there's a lot of creative ways to go ahead and help utilize that format. And the Canvas platform we use is very user-friendly as well too. Another question here for you, Michael, is that I know one of the other areas that I know people were interested in learning a little more about was kind of the work-life balance. And I know you touched on that a little bit here, but to take it a step further, what advice would you give to someone who's very interested in the program, but they're still really concerned about balancing their schedule and fitting everything in without being too overwhelmed?
Thanks. I think, you mentioned one of the key points was that the assignments are deadline driven, and often you'll have 2, 3, 4 assignments over the course of a term that are due on a given date. And, just as we all had to manage our workload in undergrad, we all have to manage our workload at work every day. That kind of comes down to the ability to plan and to kind of set your schedule. But in my opinion, the workload is not overwhelming to the point where it's prohibitive, and as far as what you can engage with on an everyday basis. Like I said before, I feel like I had a really minimally interrupted life over the course of my GEM school, with the exception of a couple of times here and there where, big group projects or something I was really excited about that I wanted to spend a lot of time on, and what else is cool is the engagement that you have with your teammates. Like I said before, if something comes up and let's say you're going away for a weekend, vacation, or you have a big work event, work travel where you can't do it, the professors are flexible, your teammates are flexible, and everybody throughout the program understands what the life of an average GEM student looks like. And a lot of times that there are required flexibility, and as a result of that, the program is designed with that in mind.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And one of the key things I want everyone to remember too is that Michael wasn't the average student in the sense where he transitioned from a field outside of energy, from finance, right, Mike? Like
Yep.
what you said. So he didn't know some of the lingo and those things. So if anything, he was kind of starting in a 60-yard dash. People were on the 5 or 10-yard line, and he was starting from the 0-yard line, so to speak. So I think that's something that's really important too, to notice that even with that, it was still something that was very manageable, as long as you, like anything else, with your significant other, or many of our students have families, a lot have kids, just make sure everyone's on the same page, right? And I think the nice thing is that those first 4 days in person really give you the chance to plan out for that too. So thank you for that insight, Michael. And then for the curriculum here, to touch on that a little more, It's a total of 12 courses in the entire program here, and some students liken it to like an energy MBA in some regards. And I think on the surface, a lot of the classes look similar because the business and leadership focus, but a couple things definitely distinguish it from it is that one, it's 100% energy focused. So let's say instead of going like 2 layers deep, into what energy, a topic of economics or finance, it's much deeper in terms of the lingo, how everything works. And I'll give a couple examples here in a second. But the content is like an energy MBA, but 100% energy focused on all different fields. And we also teach a lot about leadership too in the program. And the other thing I want to point out before giving a couple examples of the curriculum here that I know from our poll that a few people are interested in hearing about is that it's an applied theory approach. And I really can't emphasize this enough, and we'll have Michael touch on this in a second too, but it's not just hypothetical random things that you maybe learned, back in our bachelor's degree in our Civil War class or something. I mean, everything here has a purpose. And because our instructors work full-time still, and they're in the energy field, they know how to make the coursework relevant to the themes that are important now and in the future. So the case studies, the projects that you work on are really geared with that in mind. And a couple examples here is actually in our accounting class, Professor Burkholder teaches that, worked at Excel Energy for a very long time. And one of the things that he'll do is he'll literally print out like 20, 25 quarterly budgets, hand them to everyone in the class, and go over the balance sheet, cash flow, the income statement. Not because he wants to teach how to be an accountant, I'm sure as great as that would be, but it's more about why is this important in context of the energy field. If you're in a boardroom pitching a project long-term, what things do you need to know? What to look out for? If you're going ahead and sitting on the board there of a meeting, how can you use this in the relevance of what a long-term strategy looks like? Those are things that we focus on, is the purpose of what that is. And even too, as well, a quick example here is that we had a student here recently transition from the oil and gas side to the renewable side for his energy career. And I know one of the things that he mentioned specifically too is that it would have been very difficult for him to go ahead and make that transition without having all the unique understandings of of how the program works, because he is able to learn about the different unique regulatory structures, how finance and those components work with it, and the ability to go ahead and understand how all that specifically is set up is something that's very unique to the GEM program, because it's how does it compare to all different energy structures and energy sectors, because there's so many unique aspects to each one. Something that you just wouldn't get in, let's say, a traditional MBA or maybe a master's in engineering, but something that you would get here as well to help make your energy skill set more flexible in all fields. And actually on that note too as well, here, Michael, can you go ahead and discuss specifically, with a couple of the positions that you've had, how is the energy focused curriculum applicable to your work, and are there any specific examples you can think of to help highlight that?
Absolutely. So as Glenn mentioned before, when I started the program, I actually was not in the energy industry. I worked at a financial investment firm in Boston, but I had studied the energy industry in college. I did an undergraduate thesis actually on renewable energy policy. So I knew that was the space that I wanted to have my career in, which is why I ended up choosing GEM. And, about halfway through the program, I kind of reached a point in my own life where I was like, you know what, I'm learning all this awesome stuff about the energy industry, but I'm not able to do it. I'm not able to apply it on an everyday basis. So I left Boston, I left my job, and I moved out here to Denver to start work at Excel Energy. And I worked in the regulatory group. And, Glenn just mentioned John Burkholder. He actually connected me with the job opportunity that I ended up taking in out here in Denver. And to one of Glenn's points earlier, all the professors here actively work in the energy industry. These are people who are looking at this information on an everyday basis. One of our professors, writes articles and does financial consulting every day in the energy industry, and he teaches the finance course. So he understands what's happening. And those are the kind of things that when you go into work after reading a book or learning from a lecture or working on a project with your teammates, and you can apply that to your work, it's really refreshing and it's really enlightening. I know specifically I worked in regulatory and on rate cases, and a lot of the financial piece and the regulatory process management that I had learned at GEM was actually new news to the people who I was working with, who had already worked in the department for years. I said, I learned this stakeholder engagement process, and this might be a good idea to change the way that we engage with the different people in the throughout the rate case, because that's what John Burkholder said in this class I just took. And they were like, I had no idea that it was even a thing. So the ability to take information that you learn in class and really apply it instantly, if you happen to be in the right circumstance, to your everyday work life, I think is invigorating and refreshing. To that end, I also think, now that I work out here in consulting, the holistic energy picture is really important. It's critical that when you're approaching problems with clients and trying to provide a solution to them, that you understand what's happening on all sides of the energy landscape. What's the generation mix looking like? What's some of the pricing information looking like? And that's all information that you get throughout the entire tenure, because you are being taught by professors who are working in so many different aspects of the energy landscape. So those are just a couple of examples of how I think the diversity and the real life faculty opportunities have presented themselves as far as the application of GEM to my work and everyday life.
Yeah, no, great. And yeah, I forgot about that too as well. So yeah, we've had many students in a situation like that have used their instructors, more almost of a mentor. And we'll talk about that a little bit too, to, help with those job opportunities as well. And as Michael said, they are all still in the energy field, which I think is really critical on many fronts. So I know I referenced the executive in residence a little while ago, and it's something I wanted to bring back, because our students typically are on the cusp of like a manager or director leadership position, or they're already in that and looking to be more of senior executive, maybe go into consulting, something where they're going to need to understand the executive mindset. So on this note, we actually have the executive in residence program, something that's unique only to the GEM program. Actually, I've not seen another program that's had this, and it's something where during that cohort week, in those 4 days when you're here, we will have we will have an energy executive, like senior VP, CEO, someone that's very higher up in the energy field, come here to do some small group lunches that you can sign up for. They'll give a couple lectures. But I think one of the most valuable things they do is you can sign up for some one-on-one meetings with them as well. And I know with Peter Mueller, who is our current executive in residence, he actually, I think, had about 8 or 9 people that he met with, some from 30 minutes, some to literally, I kid you not, about an hour and 25 minutes. Kind of what the conversation, the time flies. And this is so valuable too, to go ahead and just understand their network. You can get career advice, mentorship. And we actually had a student specifically that met with Peter, and through her state government that she works with, actually has some opportunities with his business that she's going to connect him with, but also she's connected him with, he connected her with another contact here too for potential job opportunity, that she actually stayed an extra day on that Tuesday to meet with someone. So her and her husband just spent an extra day, maybe went to Fort Collins, I don't know, something nice like that. But they were able to actually connect through that, and she was able to meet someone to help with her career right then and there too. So you never know what can come of those things, but it's something that I know a lot of our students really enjoy hearing their perspective and develop some great relationships with as well. And in addition to that too, on the leadership front, our faculty here also typically will have at least at minimum, like director or higher experience. On average, probably over 20 years of energy experience too, from all different energy fields. So just like how our students represent all different energy fields, the executive in residence do, and the faculty do as well. But it's much more than just like a faculty you had, let's say in your undergraduate degree. Mine was from Wisconsin, go Bucky. And I had a great education there, but I didn't really get to have those relationships with my instructors there. Here, you really get to know them as well. And I know a lot of our students still stay in touch with them too, but they also offer more as like a mentor as well. And because they're still working in the field, they help a lot with just whether it's grabbing a cup of coffee, career advice, as Michael mentioned, even potentially connecting with a job opportunity as well. And because they're still working full-time in the energy field, they understand the important issues to include in the curriculum to make it relevant and useful for you. So actually on that note too, I know you talked a little bit about the faculty already here, Michael, but maybe to elaborate a little more, can you talk about what stood out to you most about the faculty, and maybe a couple examples of how they were not only a teacher, but really served as kind of a mentor as well as you were transitioning into the energy field?
Yeah, sure. So, as I said before, I think to me one of the most valuable things about the whole program was the fact that the faculty and the teachers and the professors were active members of the energy industry. We've all been through undergrad, and I personally did a liberal arts degree where everyone's teaching you all this really uh, maybe interesting, maybe not interesting stuff that there's a high chance you'll never learn about or never use in your real life. Philosophy, literature, all that good stuff. And because that's their world, and their world is being a professor, and their world is studying and researching that information. But what the professors here bring to the table is what is their world, which is the energy, being an employee, being a member of the energy industry. And I think that provides them with an insight that they know what's the most valuable for you to know as a as a student here. Dr. Main Hussein, he is a nanoparticle physicist, but he understands, listen, I don't need to teach nanoparticle physics to these students. I need to teach practical applications of things like fluid dynamics and thermomechanics, and to the extent that it's going to be valuable to these people as they try to be leaders in the energy industry. So that's a really important thing. And to that end, they also understand what you're going through as a student. You are actively engaged with the same industry they are, and therefore trying to contribute to the same space and the same industry that the professors are, and understand what you're going through as a student. So, as far as mentorship, as I mentioned, John Burkholder really helped me get my first energy industry career at Excel Energy, and it was through reaching out to him, and I did the same actually with quite a few professors, and all were very helpful because they all are in the industry. As far as, I'm looking to move to Denver, I'm looking to enter the energy industry. Do you have any connections with folks who I could potentially engage with? And that was an area where I felt like another program might not have been able to offer the same responsiveness in their faculty due to the fact that they're in the energy industry. And as far as looking at some of your professors as mentors, these folks are a lot of them they're all very passionate about the energy work that they do, and it's easy to relate your own energy, your own passion for the energy industry, whether it's for oil and gas, for renewables, for sustainability, to really bond with them. And I've spent hours at a variety of different bars around town with several of the professors in the program when they were visiting for cohort weekend. And also, now that I live here in Denver, it's not that uncommon to, after one of these gem happy hours or something like that, to say, hey, let's go grab a drink at the bar. And next thing you know, it's 4 hours later, and it's time to go to bed. So, the opportunities that we have to bond with the professors as really experienced energy professionals, I think was one of the most valuable pieces of the program for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, and what better to bond with someone than a cold glass of beer from the Rocky Mountains, right? So, but also, yeah, I know we've had the Dr. Mason, who has teaches here for a very long time. We'll grab a cup of coffee with students and other things, but yeah, that's just another, I think, really valuable piece, is that you can take advantage, utilize those mentorships or relationships that you have too. So speaking of which, I know the other really big component people want to are the audience here that you all wanted to know about was what about the job support resources, career examples. So let's dive into that. So the energy field, as many of you may know, it's very big, but it's very small. I think Michael will definitely attest to this, and anyone who's in the field, especially in the Denver, Colorado area, can as well. So it matters not just who you know, but how you know them. What's your relationship with them? And fortunately, for the GEM program, we have over 10 years of having relationships with different faculty, alumni, over 400, as I mentioned, across the country, and have a lot of layers to help our students take that next step in their energy career. From the CU Business Career Connections here that helps with different resume building, interviewing, to a couple exclusive partnerships that we have, including one with Iridium Staffing that helps energy professionals go to other energy careers, from oil and gas, renewables, utilities, and even other ones, or within oil and gas too. And also, we have recently developed, and I think Michael may talk about this in a little bit, an exclusive LinkedIn page that's almost serves like a hybrid of like LinkedIn and Indeed.com, where we have job first opportunities that we post on there, but also no matter where you are across the country, you can make warm connections with GEM alumni and current students that are across the country. So you can go ahead, whether it's searching by the region that they're in, California, New York, or by the specific industry, it's a great way to maintain those connections. Or if you're looking to possibly move or want to get connected to someone there, you can do that as well too. So being part of that very unique network exclusively, I know something that a lot of our students have utilized. Even I know someone from Nebraska, one of our alumni too, actually just got a position utilizing that. I think he started last week. So it's just a great way to go ahead and continue to utilize those resources. As I mentioned here, we have a second poll question that I will ask everyone to go ahead and quickly fill out right now. It's just regarding the application and admissions process. Specifically with that, what information do you want to know that's helpful? So just go ahead and choose one of them. And while you're going ahead and doing that over the next 30 seconds or so, we'll go ahead and transition to our next layer here of the career advancement and what jobs look like with some of the different examples actually of that students have done. So in terms of career advancement, what students have done, there's really many layers to this. The first thing I want to point out is that actually a little over 50% of our students in the program have been promoted within 6 months of graduating, and a third of them have received a salary increase of 10% or higher as well. So when in terms of return on your investment, I know a lot of our students definitely see that in that way, but also even transitioning careers and going into different leadership positions too. As you can see here, these are just a few examples, and there's many, many more, but they're in all energy fields: oil and gas, utilities, renewables, and power. And we even actually have a couple examples here I wanted to highlight of those that change energy industries. We've had a couple actually who worked in the oil and gas field as landmen, and I know one actually transitioned to work at Excel Energy as a senior contract analyst after 2016 happened. I know it was tough, on a lot of people in the energy industry. This individual student had to transition over there because it was just time to go ahead and move on. We had another one recently that actually works now at a renewable energy firm right outside of Denver here, and he made this connection, like Michael, with one of our faculty members. And because of that, I think it was one I referenced earlier of that transferable skill set that he had, he was able to go ahead and take that to go from oil and gas to how it works on different renewable projects it's been. And and to quote him exactly, he said it's been a life transformation for him, really. And even I know Michael himself too, and he's the last one here, I highlighted that went from the utility side to working more renewable and grid. So, the nice thing about that skill set is that it prepares you for all these different examples. We've had, many here, as you can see, that go into a lot of VP leadership positions, really taking that next step, but also a lot that form their own companies, that go into consulting, and many, many other components as well. So just a few different examples there of that how our students have gone on to go ahead and use for the next step in their career. And actually, on that note too as well, Michael, what advice would you give to someone who is looking, let's say, at GEM versus MBA, and it's in the context that they want to stay in the energy industry, but they're just not sure which one would be looked upon the best, or which would be the best fit for them if they want to grow in the energy field?
Thanks. Yeah, so that's a great comparison. I think that's a comparison that most folks, including myself, who are considering this program, are probably going about and trying to make a decision on that particular question. And I think one of the things that GEM offers you is not only an advantage over your peers who have only just an MBA, but it provides you with the direct application of the skills and the knowledge that you get from an MBA education, and highlights how they apply specifically to the energy industry. So, or public utility accounting, for example, not a very exciting topic, but it's different than typical accounting. Oil and gas commodity management, the cyclical nature of the oil and gas industry is different than some of the stock market and financials that you might have the opportunity to learn at an MBA. So the specific application, and again, taught by energy professionals, really provides you as a student with the understanding of, okay, here's the knowledge, here's the information, and now I don't have to make the connections myself. I'm given the tools with which to apply this stuff directly to the energy industry. But on the other hand, what you do get is the same education or a very similar education from a content perspective that you would get at an MBA. You know, the financial piece of it, the management, the leadership, the HR and human capital management, which, you know, you may not think typical MBA program, but it's there, and it's equally important when it comes to managing folks in the energy industry or managing folks outside the industry. And, you know, change management, strategic thought development, strategic project management, all of the components that you typically think of the skills that you gather in an MBA, you're taught that here at GEM, but you're provided with the tools with which to apply it directly to the energy industry. And that's really what I think. And then, you know, from a job competitiveness perspective, you have a leg up against the folks who only have an MBA, because you have the educational pedigree to say, listen, I know more about these things and their specific applications to the energy space, whether it's oil and gas or renewables. I know more about this stuff than this other guy who you're considering for this position, because I studied it specifically in my graduate program. So, you know, I've been told specifically by the person that hired me that the GEM program was a key considering factor. And I think that you know, you'd be foolish not to assume that would be the case no matter where you are or where you end up.
Yeah, and actually, since we're on that note too, Michael, I know one of the questions that another student had here was wanting to know a little bit more about essentially, how does an employer look at GEM versus MBA? Is it something that's almost too, I don't know, restrictive? I think that the student wanted to know, or that. So I know you kind of touched on that a little more, but I guess can you elaborate in terms of, like, I guess why they said that GEM versus MBA was something that they thought was more useful or, you know, different? Because I know that's the biggest thing I probably hear about when working with students too, is that they want to make sure the credibility and everything with the degree here, even though it's from the business school like an MBA, you know, would have the same oomph, if not more, let's say.
Yeah, a couple of things there. You know, I think actually one of the unique things about this program is it's a Master of Science, which gives the program a more technical designation, even though it is a lot, you know, a lot of the same coursework that you do in an MBA. Master of Science, to folks who I work with, you know, I evaluate project employee resumes when looking at potentially consulting work. You look at, okay, this person has the technical background, has the technical expertise that you get in a Master of Science. So that's one, I think, differentiating factor. But as far as how do employers look at it versus an MBA, you know, they may not be necessarily familiar with, you say, oh, I have a GEM degree. You know, it may be something where, you know, the specific application of the GEM degree is the energy industry. So folks who are looking at potentially hiring people inside the energy industry will know about the degree. So, you know, if you're outside the industry, it may not be something that's considered on the same page as an MBA, but within the industry, and if you're not in the industry, then you're in the wrong degree. You know, within the industry, I think it's considered favorable by employers. I know, you know, I got two jobs, one at Excel and one here at Navigant, directly because of the fact that I had was undergoing the GEM degree, or I now have completed the GEM degree. And it just really shows that you're committed also to the industry, that you are not kind of just sitting here looking for an analyst job. And when an analyst job comes up in another sector, you might be able to pivot like that. It really shows commitment to the space. And I think that's something employers value as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great perspective too. And I know I've heard actually from, you know, different students here of how, you know, even though they didn't take specific job opportunities, one of the reasons that recruiters got in touch with them or something that separated them was because of that GEM degree. But I think it was just helpful for the audience to kind of hear you explain that. So thank you for doing a great job there with that, Michael, and kind of helping to everyone understand what that looks like. All right, so here, as you may have seen, we have students from all different energy fields that are in some of the biggest companies in the world. Not just energy companies, but the biggest, like GE, Tesla, World Bank, Xcel Energy, you know, multi-billion-dollar entities. We also have a lot of students that work for some smaller firms, have opened up their own with GEM students that we've had. And one of the things that I'll have Michael talk about here in a second is a phrase you may hear often, that's GEM family. Now, I know on the surface, and bear with me for a second, it does sound a little cheesy, right? It's like, GEM family, what? But when you truly get to go ahead and get to know the students here like I do, or go through the program like Michael does, you'll see that people don't just stay in touch with each other during the program, but really afterwards. They want to help each other, you know, whether it's it's, helping someone through a tough time, or hiring a fellow student here or alumni for their company because they want to help pay it forward. There really is a lot of lifelong relationships that are developed here. Even like our director of the program, I know Sarah went on, I think participated in a race, a bike race with lighting. That was like some 100-mile 2-day thing that I can't even begin to imagine how tiring it is, but there's a lot of those things with that because of how small the energy field is. But really through a lot of the alumni events, different speaker series, and we have a lot of through their different groups that students stay in touch with here well after the program. It's something that, helps, I think, kind of reap that benefit, not just during it, but afterwards as well. I even know that our director here, Sarah, met with a couple students the past 3 weeks to discuss different job opportunities, things that she's hearing, and there's just a lot of those things to go ahead and still stay in contact with. And actually on that note too, Michael, I know you have a specific involvement with the Alumni Association here. So can you describe a little bit about your relationship with the GEM Alumni Committee?
Sure, thanks. So I lead the Alumni Association from an operations perspective as the Vice President of Operations. And what that is, it's gives me the opportunity to remain engaged with the current students, the alumni, the program faculty, and to try to continue the growth and the expansion of the GEM family. And as Glenn said, the energy industry, it's a huge industry, but it becomes very familiar to you as a student. And what GEM does is actually, as Glenn mentioned, it gives you the opportunity also to jump from oil and gas to renewables to power to back to oil and gas, whatever career path you may see. And as the Alumni Association, we are trying to keep in touch and keep everyone involved and keep the kind of the circular relationship between the students, the alumni, and the program together. And I think that provides networking resources. Think about, you're trying to change jobs. Let's say you're tired of oil and gas and you think you want to go into the utility industries. There's hundreds of alumni at this point, and a lot of them are in the utility industry. And having that resource, I said before, you're going to learn a ton from the professors, but you're also going to learn a ton from the students that you're in the program with. And these are a lot of these people that have graduated or are in the program, they are executives, they're leaders in the industry, and the ability to have a connection with them is one of the things that we are really heavily trying to focus on in the Alumni Association. It's something that we're trying to kind of reboot, so to speak, and really increase the engagement. We're hosting an event at a brewery type space here in downtown Denver, where we're going to get some people involved. We're hosting things like lunch and learns, happy hours, industry tours, conferences, things like that, where we can get folks in the industry, provide them with opportunities that their folks who haven't gone through GEM won't have because they're not as cool as us. And I actually wanted to touch on one other thing, actually, to go back real quick, if you don't mind, to the GEM versus MBA. You'll see a lot of degrees out there that are sustainability MBAs or green MBAs, and I actually looked at a lot of those programs as well. And having gone through the GEM program, I think you get a perspective on the holistic energy industry from GEM in a way that you would not necessarily get from one of these sustainability or environmentally focused graduate programs. So just a quick note there, something to consider, because I looked at some of those as well, and I don't know that they would have been able to provide the really well-rounded energy industry from a kind of a politically agnostic perspective that GEM did, which is becoming increasingly important in the energy world.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those that don't know Michael as well as I do, he's being facetious, even though he is a cool cat himself, with that. I'm sure many of you are cool whether you do the GEM program or not. So just a little side note there. But yeah, I think that's a great point too, in terms of really, especially if you're transitioning into it or looking to go from one energy sector to another, it becomes that much more important to understand all those different perspectives from a legal, political level, regulatory. Those are a lot of things that we discuss as well too in the program with that. So going on to a little bit more on the admissions application side here, and I know there were a couple things that we wanted to go over, including how competitive the GEM program is and how hard it is to get in, that I'll go over here in a second. I know that's something a lot of people want to hear about. So quickly, as many of you may know with tuition, it's $54,000 for the entire program. That's the same in-state or out-of-state. Just a couple quick notes. You do not have to pay it all at once. You can have payment plans set up at our business office. Some students have partial tuition reimbursement. Many, I'd say probably the majority, use some form of financial aid. So there's a lot of different options there that we can work with you on before class starts to make sure that there's something that would be viable for you. And in addition to that too as well, talking about the application, I know one of the biggest things that people wanted to know about the prospective students here is how competitive is it to get in? And really, it's on a case-by-case basis. I'd say that we typically, have a good amount of students that have some energy experience, usually probably a few years. But we also, for example, in our last cohort, I had several students that had, 1.5 to 3 years of energy experience, or even I think 3 or 4 that were transitioning into the energy field. So it really just depends on their background, because they had a transferable skill set, or maybe they did really well in a degree or transferable skill that would be great for the energy field, and they have a good reason for it, versus just, hey, this kind of sounds cool. So we do evaluate that on a case-by-case basis, because we want to make sure the quality of students of the program is great, and I know Michael can attest that it definitely is. In terms of like some GPA, GMAT, GRE things, if you have a good amount of energy experience, like at least a few years, the GPA is not as heavily looked at. I'd say typically it's at least the high 2s to low 3s, for our students here. And sometimes, they're like anything else, there's outliers on both sides. For energy experience too, one of the great things is that we reward energy experience. We put our money where our mouth is, so to speak. So if you have 5 or more years of energy experience, you automatically get the GMAT or GRE waived. You do not have to take it. And even if you're a little under that, like 3, 4, or just under 5 years, we have a GMAT waiver process that I would work with you on to assist with that as well. And the biggest thing too, I wanted to make sure everyone gets out of this, is that it's a completely different process than your undergraduate degree. It's much quicker. In fact, most students I work with should be able to get everything done in about 2 to 4 weeks. I've had some students finish it in 3 or 4 days. And we get decisions back after your file is complete within about 1 to 2 weeks at the absolute most. And because we've been doing this for so long, having our 22nd cohort coming up here, it's a well-oiled machine that way. So also with that though, I would go ahead and actually help students that go through the application process to make sure your file is as strong as possible. So if you would decide to apply, and of course, we would connect before you would go ahead and finish everything here, just to make sure it's all a good fit and that you have all the help you need with that. I would oversee your file, help with essay questions, reference letters to make sure that looks good, and even a couple tips here too. If you do have transcripts, e-transcripts electronically are something that many schools do now, and it's very useful. And also for your essays, you can email those directly to me. There's usually 4 mini essay questions, about 200 words or so each, which is like a paragraph, and I almost always review them before they're finalized to provide some feedback for students here. And as far as the next steps, if you need this if you need this this link, you can let me know, and I'll reach out to everyone here after the webinar. But you can email me directly too. Otherwise, if you go to this page here to start the online application, one other thing I wanted to make sure everyone knew is that the nice thing about it is you can do it at chunks at a time. You do not have to go ahead and do everything at once. It's not overwhelming like that. For example, if let's say after this webinar you want to go ahead and start it for 15 minutes, great, do that, save some of your progress, log back in on the weekend. And you can kind of do it in chunks at a time that way, which is nice to save your progress. And actually too, something we're doing for those that will go ahead and apply for our upcoming cohorts here that we have in January, or I know we have some students applying in October, or for that class, is that we are waiving the application fee if you go ahead and complete your entire file by August 30th. So as you can see here, the file deadline as of right now will be December 15th. However, we sometimes work with students even a little after that, or may even be a little before if the class fills up. But the cohort in January starts on January 17th. So as you can see, because that's about a month before then, there's definitely still enough time to go ahead and get everything in. But like anything else, if you don't need to wait for it, why procrastinate? The sooner you get everything done, the sooner you can plan ahead, have everything set up, and really set yourself up for success there. Those are just a couple details with that. And of course, as promised too, actually we are gonna go ahead and skip the Q&A section, because a couple of the questions we have, you're able to intertwine throughout the webcast here. And I know it's just a few minutes before 1 p.m. Mountain Time. However, for those that did attend the webcast here live today, as promised, you do get a chance to get your first quarter of textbooks provided for you for free, which is about a $300 to $400 value. To enter it, just go ahead and email me directly. I'm sure you all have my email, and you'll get one. You'll get a You'll get an email from me within the next day or two, after you attend the webcast here. But just go ahead and reply to me, glenn.engelberg@ucdenver.edu. Just a one sentence, hey Glenn, this is my official entry to enter for the eligibility, for the first quarter of textbooks for the GEM program. And if you do go ahead and submit this by Thursday, August 1st, you'll be eligible, and I will contact the winner directly on Friday, August 2nd, and that you will get your first of 2 classes here. You have your books taken care of for that, so you don't need to worry about that, and nothing wrong with that, right? Well, again, I want to thank everyone for coming here and joining us today. I will go ahead, as I mentioned, and follow up with you with a few other details. If you have any questions on the application process or program in general, or even for Michael too. I don't know, Michael, if you want to say a couple last words in case anyone wants to reach out to you directly or has any questions.
Yeah, sure. If any of you guys have any questions for me, about my GEM experience, transferring industries from finance to energy, transferring jobs throughout the course of the program, or managing the workload, or anything like that, Glenn can hook you up with my contact info. I'm certainly willing to talk with anyone who wants to have another in-depth conversation if that's something that would be valuable. You're on mute, Glenn.
So sorry about that. Yeah, well, thank you again for everyone for joining us here today. And as I mentioned, we'll follow up with you shortly. Reach out to me about the textbook scholarship contest here. And I hope you found this webinar helpful, and we'll look forward to connecting with you soon. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Bye. And of course, thank you, Michael, for coming and helping us out today.
You got it. Thanks, guys.